people who have been, who are less privileged, people who are endangered, exposed, could be traumatized, wounded in one way or another, either socially, intellectually, or economically. So it could be in different areas and in different facets. And one of the first thing that we saw as we discussed this question is respecting them the way they are, as unique, and we will not approach them from the point of vulnerability, but you respect them as unique people in their own way. And number two, then we said it's important to understand them and also understand their context. And it's very interesting that we saw sometimes what we may view as a weakness from our perspective could be a strength on their part. So they may even be wondering, what are you talking about when you are saying that we have this weakness? Because for them, it could be a point of strength. So we agreed, therefore, that it is important not to label these people. Don't go there with a labeling that these are people who are like this or like that. Let us go there with an open mind to be able to understand their context and understand exactly what they need and where they are coming from. And at that point we said it's good to give affirmation, affirm them, accept them, embrace them as equal, and engage them at that point of equality. Then the fourth thing we saw is the need for training and education for purpose of empowerment. And one thing that oftentimes we may be blind to is that people may be in an environment that makes them vulnerable. But that does not mean that there are no resources in that place that can be exploited, that can be used from their context. So probably what they may only be requiring is education, is training to be able to tap and exploit the resources that are within their environment. And some small forms of empowerment in one way or another. We got an example of people who are giving milk goods to the community, and they are also taught how to, after some time, once they grow that project, to give back a percentage of whatever they earn, either from the milk or from selling the goats, in order to ensure that there is someone else benefits from that. So there is continuity of that project, and they also feel like they need also to know how to help, to be of help to others who may be in similar situations. You're using the same people, you've just empowered them at the beginning, but you're using the same people to give back to their fellow people in the community and show them that they are able to do it. They can be able to do it themselves. And the fifth thing that we looked at is even when we step in, or when people step in to help these communities for purposes of empowering them, it's important to have a close monitoring and evaluation of the projects that have started, in order that we may give guidance and ensure sustainability and continuity of those projects. So it's very important to walk the journey with them, work together with them until whatever has been started is sustainable and there's continuity, even when the person initiating the project may not be there. And then the sixth point we looked at is the importance of developing structures that you enable or guarantee future success. So anything that is not structured may fail with time. So it's important to teach them the importance of having proper structures that can withstand the test of time, so that whatever initiatives are started, there's a structure that ensures that they stand and continue. We looked at some of the things that are done most of the times in terms of projects, like we have the bead and basket weaving projects, something like that. We talked of marketing support. Sometimes these people have all those products, but they don't know what to do with them. They're just waiting for somebody to come and buy one after whichever time they'll come. And I remember our sister here telling us she found brooms being sold at 20 shillings, and she had to buy 5. They were too cheap. The women have worked hard to have them ready. There's nobody to buy them. So it's important to empower such people and to help them know that whatever they are doing can be a venture that can be productive and that can help them and even support them in their context. And number 8, we also realize that it's important as we get into these vulnerable communities. Most of them are closed. They may realize of their vulnerability because they may see that they are lacking in some aspects. So they are closed, and sometimes it's not easy to disclose information to people, especially people they may not trust. So as we get into them, we saw that it's important to go there and first of all build a consensus with them. Have a sitting with them. Don't go there with a picture of what needs to be done. Sit down with them, build a consensus. And we're given an example of a book called 3 Cups of Tea. 3 Cups of Tea. Yeah, and the idea behind the 3 cups of tea is very simple. When you go somewhere, first of all, take 3 cups of tea, so that you don't just jump in and start talking, so that you're able to have time to listen and understand what is happening. By the time you are through with the 3rd cup, utakuwa umeshika rada. That means you now be in the same wavelength. So that is what we need to do, so that we're able to build consensus. We walk the journey together. And the last thing we looked at is the aspect of respecting their culture. Some of these things may be strange to whoever goes in, but respect that culture. Start from there. Once you respect the culture, they will embrace you, and you'll have a platform to empower them in whichever way that you want to empower them. And those are the points that we looked at as Group 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Jihia, and thank you, Group 4, for the very thorough work and conversation that you've had. Is there anything else someone would like to add? Yes, Dr. Kiriakou. Okay.
It feels to me like it's a little contradictory in the sense that you don't want to overload them, you want to understand them, you want to empathize with them, yet you come with a structure of control. That, I don't know how they have to wrestle with that.
Anyone who wants to respond? Yes.
On the area of structure, is you identify among themselves people who are gifted. You form a kind of a team that will be sustaining that, and you give you look at the talents that they have, somebody with managerial and all that. Then if that project you are leaving, you don't leave it to nobody. The structures is among themselves. Before you leave them, you already have the structures so they can be able to sustain themselves.
Thank you. Any other question or comment or addition? No? Okay, thank you. Thank you again to Group 4. Do we have anybody Neil from group 3? Yes.
We were looking at the question number 3. Have you witnessed mutuality and respect in mission? And we said when it comes to mutuality, we would want to see cooperation, we would want to see a place where there is sharing, reciprocation, admiration, and respecting the views of the partners, and appreciating their abilities, being able to listen to each other, understanding the culture of the people, and recognizing and understanding also the needs, and helping people to be able to appreciate their contexts. And we said there is a lot that we see happening in that area, so we can affirm that there is quite a lot that is happening in that area. People are mutual. But we also said in some cases, even today here, we also see situations where people have not understood the context of the people they are ministering to, and we were encouraging each other that we need to see more of that happening, helping people understand and appreciate the culture of each other. And when we are moving them, we let the Word of God speak to them, so that it is the Word of God changing them and helping them to be what God would want them to be, rather than imposing a cultural a culture from your point of view as a partner to the people that you are ministering to. We say this can only happen also in a place where there is a lot of humility, where people are able to humble themselves and accept each other as we are. And we also say it can also happen, the mutual respect can also take place in a place where there is trust, where you are building trust with each other. So that can also help a lot. And also in a place where there is a mutual sharing, where people are sharing and journeying together. We also say that it can also take place where there is love, and this love needs to be cultivated, from time to time through visits, encouragements, and appreciating what is happening in the relationship that you are building. We also say that we need to also see more happening. Even the people who have partners and they are being given some support and assistance, we need to help them or give them an opportunity to be a blessing, to each other. So every partner should consider ways of making your other partner feel that they are a blessing to you and a blessing even as you become a blessing to them. And we said they can be a blessing to you by continually sharing prayer requests so that they can be praying for you as you pray for them. Also allowing them to bless you with what they have in their context, what they have. Because just as it was said in group 4, every area, every context has its own richness. And what you have, you should bless other people with. In Masai land, for instance, we are very good in making beads and some other handicraft. and we can use that to brace our partners so that we also feel that we are making a contribution. We also say that in whatever is done, we should see ways of also making the other people make a small contribution, even if it's a small contribution towards a project, so that it's not 100%, 100% supported. They also need to feel they have made a contribution for ownership purposes. I think, unless I have forgotten something, that was our sharing. Thank you.
Thank you. So is there any other comment for the question from group 3? Have you witnessed mutuality and respect in mission? No? Okay. We're just going to go backwards. Is there anyone from group 2 who can give us a report? Or not yet?
I don't see the person who was taking the notes, but she's out. Oh, she's there.
Ah, she's here. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Okay, so we are group 2 and we are dealing with what values should shape mission partnership. So on basis of what values are, we started with that. Values are the standard behaviors or how people behave. And we had 6 points. And the first one was commitment. On commitment, we dwelt on the ongoing partnership as well as something that is starting, partnership that you're starting, that a non-stop partnership. The second one was mutual respect. The third one was openness and accommodation. And on openness and accommodation, we dwelt on the willingness to learn as well as the willingness to be taught. On the fourth point, we dwelt on honesty and accountability. On honesty and accountability, this entails on the transparency on accounting on funds that are funded by donors to our mission or in the mission and partnership. Then on the fifth, we dwelt on working systems. On working system, we said we should value we should value the working system that is set by both partners and the donors, since it's a partnership, a mission partnership. So if you value and respect what have been set, this will enable our goal as the donors and the mission to be accomplished. Then the sixth and the last was on timely communication. On timely communication, this is in reference to what the partners or what the donors came to bring up. For example, we related on timely communication on marriage. If you communicate earlier enough on marriage, you don't have disagreements. But if you don't, you are most likely to have disagreements. On that note, we referenced on the partnership where in that reference, we talked about withdrawing of donors because we don't communicate when we change the goals that were set on that note. So there were just 6. Thank you. My group members may add something.
Okay, that was group number 2. We can appreciate her with a clap. So are there any other comments or additions or questions for group number 2? What values should shape mission partnerships? Yes. Sorry.
So our presbytery has gone
some miles ahead when we come to scholarships. Of the 13 students that we are sponsoring, we are pairing them with a church member. For the reason we want to go beyond the financial donations. We want to know the parents, the guardians. We want to know the other things that are surrounding the students, because apart from the tuition, there could be some other charges. And actually, some of the people that we've paired are Kenyans, so that when they visit here, the church is going to request them to visit the students, so that we can build that rapport that is beyond the tuition. And who knows, because of building the rapport, some of those students may be sponsored up to the college or the university. So the issue is not more of the financial provision, but also trying to build the marriage, so to speak.
Thank you. Any other comment or addition? Okay. Thank you to group number 2 for your contribution. So now we'll go back to group number 1, who is reporting. Thank you, Reverend Morris.
Thank you. Assume I'm reporting since I am the one with the notes. So we were addressing the question, how would you describe the purpose of mission partnerships? And we began by highlighting the importance of our mission, the Great Commission, to go, to reach out with the gospel, but also the Great Command to love and to reach out in a way that brings about the breaking down of barriers and the transformation of community. And with that very much in mind, then partnerships which serve that mission, mission partnerships, need to be faithful to koinonia. There needs to be, in addition to the Great Commission and Great Command, a great commitment to koinonia, to fellowship, to love one another, and to grow in our awareness of the body of Christ that we are, that we have to have those Pentecostal moments of learning one another's language and culture. There needs to be a growth in meaningful relationship where there is transparency, trust, accountability, just a growing understanding of what our mission is, resource mobilization and so forth. We highlighted the value of outside eyes, bringing fresh perspectives into mission partnerships, and how the interactions that we have really add value in that way. That we come together in some ways as fellow sufferers, and arising out of challenges that we face is that commitment to love and understand one another and to work together. And it is really, in conclusion, we thought through numbers of models of partnership with a view to avoiding toxic charity, so to speak. We mentioned briefly that you can end up with a horse and rider parting the agenda and in control, but it's also, there's the model of the cow and the milkmaid view of partnership, where one partner is simply in it to milk it for what it can gain. And then we concluded mentioning the the partnership of the blind person and the lame person who wanted to see Jesus. And they were only going to see Jesus if they went together, with the blind person providing the legs and the lame person providing the eyes. And so holding up that, just I think a sense of the importance of koinonia and depth and quality of fellowship as the body of Christ is crucial, so that kind of love for one another overflows into a mission that's transformative in the world today.
Thank you. Any other comments from Group 1 or about the question? How would you describe the purpose of mission partnerships? Okay, thank you so much to Group 1. Yes, Reverend.
The whole picture of it, because partnerships have been there for a long time.
Yes.
I don't know whether the group number 1 were able to see the bigger picture. Is it a success story? Has it been having challenges? Because when you are describing something, you are describing what you can see.
Yes.
I can see some glasses, I can see some sports, I can see this and this. The challenges it has gone through, I don't know.
So Reverend Marigo has asked the question, if we look at the history of mission partnerships, would we say that is a success story or not? Group number 1, do you have any comment on that?
We simply addressed the question of describing the purpose, not
Thank you.
the success of it.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah? It's a good question.
It's good after attributed to many people. I heard it attributed to St. Therese, where God does not ask you to be successful. God asks you to be faithful. I don't care exactly what it's just. It's a commitment.
So Professor McCutcheon said, there's a quote, from Teresa of Avila. We don't know who it's from, that says God doesn't ask whether we're successful, but whether we're faithful. And maybe that's a helpful question in partnerships. And in the life of discipleship in general, it's a good question. Any other comment or question? Okay. So then the last group is number 5. Do we have somebody to report from group number 5?
Thank you. As in Group 5, we are looking on how to improve mission and partnership. That was our question. That is what we tried to handle. And we were very precise. And one of our points that we discussed and that we came up with for us to improve that the mission that we have, or the mission that we are in, and our partnership, is that we should always have a comprehensive memoranda of understanding between the parties, in that none of us will pull out or will delay in the process. Number 2, it is to have a clear entry and an exit route of whatever we are doing. Number 3, it is to always have a continuous evaluation and a monitoring process between us all. Number 4, it is submission of progress reports to us. Number 5, to establish a well-developed structures and processes of governance. Well-developed structures of governance within us. The other point that we saw of importance was to be having an audit of all our resources and sums allocated to us. Because not only money should be audited, also other resources. The other, that is number 7, it's also good for us all as partners, make efforts to visit our sites. Because we might be funding a project here, but it's a project that is on the air. That is a hot air in the Kenyan language currently. So it is neither here or there, but still resources are being pumped. So it is good to be visiting our sites where we deem of a project that is taking place. Point number 8, it is synergy in collaboration. By that we mean, when you have your shilling or when you have your dollar, we should bring them together and mount up and work with it for that project, all of us. So you bring, I bring, synergy in collaboration. And we went a bit further on updates. We got a point that we should update ourselves on progress and challenges still during the process. This can be either daily, weekly, quarterly, as you decide that there is a way that you can communicate well and understand what is going on well between the two of you. Now, on challenges and progress or the achievements, that at least no one feels that it has taken too long before things are known. And one of us suggested that it has taken too long for us in some areas that we are only empowering ladies. And in quotes, because wherever you go, a project is only mostly directed to the female gender. And he encouraged us that we should go back to men also and ask them to engage, to encourage male gender to have a cooperative partnership also, other than, because men always feel to go their way. They don't want to engage so much with others. So we should also encourage our men to venture in a corporate way of partnering with others. In that now, Meliti should not only stand as a man alone, a standalone figure. Because of other cultural, we may not be able to explain it, all of it, but cultural structures of our societies bar men from at least engaging with others. So one likes to go on his way alone. So we should encourage one another from this point also, for men to form some partnership groups that can also help them grow as others are growing. And last and not the least, around number 10 or 11, help to curb these retrogressive cultural practices in the most humane way as Christians. And that one will be able now to develop our partners. Those two were patriarchal, but still within the question, though patriarchal. Thank you and God bless us.
Thank you, group number 5. Is there any other comment or a question for group number 5? The question they were having is how can we improve mission and partnership? Yes, Reverend. Yes. Yes, Elder Kashakwa.
Yeah, there is I think why that is coming is because we made a proposal of, in our partnerships, at least drafting memorandum of understanding, which is very, very important because sometimes if partnerships and collaborations are not, don't have proper structures, creating those structures become very, very important. And when you create a structure, you must also draft documents that will govern the processes. So that, and the Presbyterian Church, today I am the session clerk, tomorrow I am not. So if you are dealing with me this time as a session clerk, you come, next time is somebody else, so you start all over again. The same with our parish ministers and so on. So by that, we find that if you don't have a structured way of managing these partnerships, there will always be breaks where continuity is affected. It is not, it is actually, we felt it is very, very important that we have documents, we have policies that will guide the expedition of these partnerships.
Thank you. Yes, Reverend?
I would also say that for every marriage to be a pure marriage, then there should be a marriage certificate. So we should not fear of a marriage certificate, which is a legal document, for us to be surely sure that we are married.
Yes, Mr. Martinez.
Thank you. Despite I didn't hear them addressing the issue of accountability and transparency, because that one can bring down the mission. They can bring down the partnership.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
we are supposed to address accountability.
When we suggested in our point number 5 or 6, around number 6, we said that there should be a knowledge of all resources and sums allocated to the projects. I think we were able to address that one. It's that we cannot be able to explain everything.
Yes.
When we are audit and of all sums and the other resources, that one comes in. It's only that the language differs maybe here and there, according to where you school.
Thank you. Yes, Elder.
Again, also, the issue of structures that we mentioned.
Yes.
We have a structured way. I think we mentioned, perhaps it's because we didn't mention it, the structures that ensures, after we say structures that ensures transparency and accountability.
Yeah.
It's also addressed in our point number 6.
Thank you. But yes, I agree with you that transparency and accountability are important. And that when we talk about partnership, often we're talking about multiple areas. First, we're talking about the friendships and the relationships that we build as brothers and sisters in Christ, about how we get to know and journey together. Then we're also often talking about projects that we undertake together, and those have financial implications. And so we have both, and they're usually intertwined. And so it is very important that we structure some of that so that we don't hurt each other on the journey or disappoint one another's expectations. I think that is a very important point. And sometimes we're speaking the same language and saying different things. And when you write something down, it can clarify for everyone. Mm-hmm. Yes, Rev.
This is a question not really good, but it's part of the questions across. It is true money is touching on most people. Can there be partnership where, or sharing or relating, where money is not the major factor? That's a question now.
Yeah. So Reverend Mariko has asked, can there be partnership where money is not a major factor? I mean, I have a response, but I think maybe so do all of you. Yeah, go ahead. You can use the microphone.
Just an incident that supports that. West Virginia Presbytery has had a partnership with Newry Presbytery for many years, and the covenant between us took many different iterations, many different forms. On one of my early trips to Newry, we sat around at Ramakurwe in the library, and we had earlier, in our previous covenant, had a financial figure. We would donate a certain amount over a certain number of years, and everybody knows Bernard Mwende, and it was the Kenyan member of the committee who suggested that we take the financial figure out, just leave it out of the covenant. And I thought that was interesting that came from the Kenyan side, not the American side. And that covenant has worked. So I think that it is possible. I think maybe it's desirable to have that, leave money out of it.
And I can speak on behalf of the missiology of the PCEA and the mission department, which said yes, partnerships should be based on relationships between churches, between people, and that the way we understand partnership is not a financial transaction, but a relationship that we build with one another through Jesus Christ, right, who brings us together. And that we need one another, not for financial purposes, but as siblings in Christ, as Reverend Mars talked about. We go to see Jesus together, and we need one another on that journey. And that doesn't have to be a financial commitment. And the finances should not be the primary part. And so when new partnerships are starting now, we usually encourage, whether it's 2 parishes or 2 presbyteries, to spend at least 18 months getting to know each other or visiting one another before any financial commitments or conversations take place. Because we're not talking about donors and recipients, right? We're talking about fellow disciples of Jesus. Any other comment? Yes, Dr. Kiriakou.
During our virtual conference that we had, I think it was last year or before, yeah. I remember one of us did mention about mental health.
Yes.
Becoming something that every people should really focus on. Mm-hmm. And in some of the conversations I had today, I had some individuals already dealing with gender and gender-based violence, and how that is related to mental health. And the limitation that there is between partners and the ministers, pastors possibly not fully, I don't know, it was just a comment that was made. Pastors not, maybe possibly not fully immersed into the relationship between gender-based violence and mental illness. And I was just wondering whether it could be something that people we should begin to explore together and see how that goes. And then the other one is something that came from, I think, from Doro, talked about retail banking.
Yeah,
They say that they are bringing in bankers to train the bankers to be able to learn how to, manage money. The one whether it is something that is being done across board or it's only job that is doing that.
Do you want to say anything about the table banking? Because I've only heard of two. I've heard of Joros, and then I've heard of one in Thika. In that area that I can't remember the name of.
Maybe I can say about the table banking. The first time when we started the table banking, it went on well because we engaged the Kenya Commercial Bank staffs so that they can come and educate our members of the guardians and the parents of the program. We narrowed down, we agree that for a person age 70 or 60 to start a new business, it will be hard. So we had to engage the Kenya Commercial Bank so that they can be able to train them, even not train them about how to spend, how to do the business, even how to save. That's why we did engage the Kenya Commercial Bank. Maybe, I don't know, Tony, you can add something there.
Maybe to add on what our able chairman has said is that also we noted that some of the vulnerable people is maybe because of the challenges they had gone through, maybe out of depression, out of loss of morale in life, they will not think of any business idea. So we could engage the bank staff to come and talk about how to start a business, how to manage a small-scale business, and then also would engage other people who would come and tell them of the many business opportunities that are available that you can start with as little as 5,000, with as little as 10,000. We have some success stories, some which went very well. There's a lady who started selling samosas, and she would actually use, instead of meat, she would use green grams. And she started off with selling 50 pieces to 100 pieces to almost 150. And they were now moving, again, the idea was to move them from being extremely vulnerable to a point whereby you can now be somebody who is making a living, a decent living. And basically that's what we are doing. So the only challenge was that when COVID happened, so many businesses were interrupted, and again, it came with its own challenges. But soon we are thinking of reintroducing the same program again so that we can move people from always being dependent and have other people who are more vulnerable than they themselves taking over. So basically that's what we have been doing. And thank you.
Thank you so much for the table banking. Is such a wonderful thing. But I have a concern when we say about empowering. I would love to know how many men they were being empowered to women, because we may empower the woman child, because he talked about a lady, and I was also in another group they were talking about ladies. What about our men? Are we able? Were they incorporated? And if not, when it comes, are we ready to incorporate them to bring the man up? Because I think it's a big challenge.
Allow me to answer that. Unfortunately, the number of men compared to the ladies was very low in our vulnerable team, but we had some men who we were able to, one was a carpenter, and he was always a hired mason. So there was a mason and there was a carpenter. So we were able to get for them some of the tools that instead of them being hired, they can actually be able to go and do the work for themselves. So there were those who we were able to empower. because again, some of these children that we have, they are either orphans or extremely vulnerable. So yes, indeed, to answer your question as you had asked, we had men who we bought for them tools that now they were not only hired as casual laborers, now they were able to do the work. Yes, so thank you.
Okay, any final comment as we move to the keynote discussion? Yes? Okay, so thank you to all the groups.
But also, being a man, you also need to deal with the ego first. And being a man, to bring him on board, first of all, you have to massage the ego so that you come to the level where you sit together with others and think about the banking. Mine is to appreciate that it's quite an afternoon and it's hot. Let's all be upstanding. I want us to have an activity for Energizer, and basically I was very good in maths in lower primary school. I don't know what happened as I went up, but I want us to do a simple mathematics. So you do a few calculations which will ensure that you have got better blood flow, and for that you'll be more alert. Okay. Okay, thank you. Let's be persistent as we continue with the program of the day. I can see the blood flow now is better, and some of us will stop praying even as we continue the sessions. At this juncture, allow me to welcome the Secretary General to say hi, even as we prepare to engage the next item of activity. We are honored to have the SG with us. He ended up this morning with meetings. A meeting every other 5 minutes, I think, is a meeting to him. And he has found time to be with us. Bwana SG, this is Kenya Mission, Kenya Network, Kenya Mission Network, Kenya Mission Network. You've been at this for longer than we. Most welcome.
Thank you so much, Bwana Director. Bwana asifiwe. Thank you. I want to start with an apology because I was supposed to start with you. But due to our diaries being managed by so many people and having so many issues in the church, we were not able to be with you, but I'm told the deputy and the moderator were able to come. So kindly accept my apology, acknowledging that we've been working together in the Kenya Mission Network, and we've been able to achieve whatever we've achieved together. So thank you so much. Secondly, I want to thank you for coming all over, from all the way, both from here and those who have come from US, from Scotland, and all over, so that we can come and have one agenda, mission. And therefore, feel welcome, and thank you for the sacrifice, taking your time, and maintaining the momentum of talking about the Kenya mission and the mission to God's people. So thank you so much, and it is my prayer that we'll be able even to have this movement, if you can allow me to call it so, whereby we're going to incorporate more people as we work and as we continue to do God's mission. Our time is short because we can only do very little within the space we've been given by God. So let us do the best we can. Let us continue to sacrifice. let us continue to and ideas and help each other so that we can be able to improve on our ways of doing mission, and especially during this time when the dynamics of mission are changing every day, and therefore what we were doing yesterday in terms of mission is not what we should be doing today. We need to change so that we can be able to address the issues or the challenges, the mission today we are having. And there are many, both internal and external. And unless we keep talking, unless we also keep changing, we'll be overtaken. I'm worried, and very much worried, because from my data, which I've corrected, it is like Christianity is declining at a very, very fast rate. Why? It is because we are lacking synergy. We are not able to work together. It is because we are not able to do research and understand the dynamics, the global dynamics and the cultural dynamics and all the dynamics which are affecting the mission today. And we are also being affected by individualism, feeling like our mission is our mission, starting from the local congregations, coming to the different denominations, and then coming to the entire family. We are not able to approach mission as one. The other thing is infightings, whereby much as we are calling ourselves brothers and sisters, where is the brotherhood? And where is this commonality which should bind us together so that we do mission as mission, Mission Day, doing mission for God, God's mission. So those are the discussions we need to hear. And we need to be sincere to ourselves. Where we have failed, we agree, yes, we have failed. Where we've done well, we look how we can be able to improve. Because, in the words of our Lord Jesus Christ, he said that it is until when you become one, then I'll come. And coming does not necessarily mean the eschatological meaning of it. It means his presence, so that he walks with us in the mission until when we are one. And therefore, I emphasize and I continue to emphasize the need of us working together and fighting this battle together. It is not business as usual. We need now to devise new ways. I've always complained, and I've always said, and I still mention about this during one of the Kenya Mission meetings in the US, that one of the challenges we are having is that, one, we are doing mission mainly on those people who are already missioned. We concentrate with Nairobi, if it is here, but we forget where our brother comes from, Marsabit. We don't put resources there. That is one of the challenges. Number two, it is the cost of the materials of mission. If there is anything expensive in this world, it is Christian evangelism material, starting with the Bible. But look at our brothers across here, the Muslims. They are giving them free of charge. I have 3 Qurans, so Murigo, you can come for one. And it is free of charge, and it is bigger than our Bible. So we need to address these issues so that we aid the business in mission and do mission in mission. Because the business is overtaking the mission. So kindly let us work together. So I thank God because of this team who are here. You've been introduced to the new director and the former director and the deputy director, Lorraine, who has done a great job. And we've been with her to the US, going all over, crisscrossing, and our sister knows, and we've been all over, talking about mission. So let us come up with strong action points. I'm sure we've discussed and we've talked action points. what we need to do. How do we sensitize more people? And we also ask ourselves, as we talk about Kenya Mission Network, how can we bring the entire PC on board? How can we bring the entire church in the USA on board so that we stop even talking about Kenya, we talk about East Africa, we stop talking about East Africa, we talk about Africa, where in Africa the average age currently is 19 years, a very young age, 19 years. Again, the fastest growing population in Africa. How do we now fenelate and penetrate in mission so that we have a bigger dream and we have a bigger vision as as us, starting with us, and we ensure everybody is on board. Thank you for coming. I repeat, we have a very short time of doing mission. Looking at our forefathers, it looks like yesterday, but they have exited the stage. Today, if you don't know, the person who interviewed me into the ministry is none other than Dr. Keriako Kenywa. This is the man. It looks like yesterday, but I'm realizing I'm exiting very soon. So let us do whatever we can do and do it urgently. It is not our mission and your mission. It is our common mission. And that is the reason why we have come together. So as I conclude, because, sorry, I'm flying to Uganda right now. There are so many things we are trying to do all at the same time. As we do this, I want to thank you, and especially our American and Scotland brothers, for what they have been doing. I'm one person who has been so much involved. Thank you, Robert, for what you are doing and connecting, us. Thank you, everybody. Because I've been in the US, thank you, Bonagari, for what you are doing and really carrying our burden and feeling we need to do more, we need to work more. Thank you, Dr. Keriako, for what you are doing. Let us work even more closer. And I want to thank you because wherever I've been to the US, I've been to the US more than to Scotland, sorry, but I'm purposing to come this time, Ireland and we will come. But they have been listening to us. They have been supporting us. They have been doing a lot of work. And I also want to recognize the new formations, if I can call them so, the new churches, our Kenyan, how do I call them? The immigrant churches, and they are coming out very strongly, now saying we must do something, for our country in terms of mission. Dr. Karimi is there, and Dr. Keriako again, Dr. Wanyoike, we were there, and one small statement and small interactions, they were able to really support education, support in the food donations we are trying to do right now. So I want to thank you for what you are doing, our Kenyan brothers who are doing a lot of mission. The good news is that now it's like we are done, we have completed the issue, and we have agreed on how to create the overseas presbytery, and now everything is in order. We are just now waiting to report at the GSC that now it is all systems go, because we are ready. We have agreed, and we are looking forward to a stronger mission together. So thank you so much. May God bless you. I wished to be with you to the end, but due to to the many things which are happening. I was telling Njugaji, I slept at 3 in the morning, and then at 6 I was in another meeting, meetings, and there is no time to rest. So let us understand and let us work together. I wish you well as we continue. I'm looking forward to receiving the resolutions and how we can enhance our working together. I'm looking forward to that. But for now, because of those other meetings I must attend, for those who are going to stay a little bit on Monday, I'll be here from 11. We can continue with our interactions and our talkings and discuss further, even on other areas. Otherwise, may God bless you. We are together, and we are praying for you, and we are praying for all our partners as you pray for us. So may God bless you, and may He keep you as you continue with the meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bwana SG, for finding time to be with us. We wish you safe travels, even as you go to do other duties. Our prayers are with you as you serve this great church within our boundaries and beyond. We will now move to the next item of agenda, and being reminded that the temperatures here are a little bit high. So if you can offload some of the attire, if it's okay with you, you will not need to pray so much and intercede even as we continue with the meeting. With that, Reverend Ronin, take us to the next.
Thank you. So, our next agenda item is the keynote. So we've asked Reverend Jihia, who serves in Marsabit, and his evangelist, Mary, to come and to share with us about the context that they serve in, the way that they work with the community, and the ministry that they do there. As we've heard already this morning, there are so many different communities and contexts for mission within Kenya and East Africa. And as Stephen said, the way we do mission in Kiambu is not the same as the way we do mission in Marsabit. And so for them to come and to bring to us some of the realities of mission in areas that are a bit farther, and that some of us visit less often, or many of us visit less often, so that together we can talk about and learn from what they're doing. So, welcome. Maybe we can clap for them as they come.
Thank you, Reverend Dolly, and the Director Mission, and also the SG. My name is Reverend Rorin, as mentioned, is James Jihia. I'm the minister in Marsabit, 5 years now. The last Kenya Mission Network conference in Mombasa, I was very new, I was about 2 years in Marsabit. But now it's 5 years since I went there. I remember in that conference we were looking at life in abundance, from John 10 in Mombasa. And unfortunately, immediately after that, we did not enjoy the life in abundance because COVID hit us. And so, since God gave us an opportunity to go through COVID and be alive, we are here mutually encouraging one another. So we thank God for keeping us and granting us that opportunity. For many of us, the highlight probably after that would be COVID. But for us in Marsabit, probably it was slightly different. it was COVID plus other things, because it is during that time that we had a lot of ethnic conflicts. And when people are worried about COVID here, we were worried about getting shot because of the conflicts that were there. In fact, I remember I would find myself in Marsabit town as the only person who is wearing a mask. No one else is bothered about COVID. But everybody was talking about peace. And that's the context that we were in the year late 2020, 2021, until the government had to step in and send a multi-agency force to counter the conflicts that were really escalating. And I'm giving this story to lay the background of the kind of work that we do, which may not be very clear to the whole church, because we don't have platforms to share some of these things. But as fellow missioners, as fellow co-workers in the mission field, we have an opportunity here to share some of those things. For those who may not be very familiar with Marsabit, Marsabit is the second largest county in Kenya, behind Turkana. It covers about 70,000 square kilometers. It's quite a big. It's a country on its own. And from Marsabit town to the last point of Marsabit, it's a distance of over 500 kilometers. So you can imagine traversing from here all the way to past Mombasa, and you're within one county. And within that county, we have about 14 different local communities. These are the Borana, the Gabra, the Rendile, Sakuye, others called Dasenach, the Turkana, Burji, El Molo. We have the Samburu also. About 14. And that's about almost 30% of the ethnic distribution in Kenya. And if you look at those statistics, at those numbers, it tells you that there's a very big reach in terms of ethnic distribution that probably as a Presbyterian church we have not been able to tap into. And just as the SG has told us that the time is short, I think it's time to ask ourselves those questions. Within that short time, will I have reached a Dasenach, who maybe we are hearing of for the first time today? Will I be able to preach the gospel and to reach this person to a Sakuye? Yet it is within our country. So we need to look at mission beyond where we are, beyond where we traditionally have focused mission on. Actually, I was looking at the groups that we have. We have the Bantus, the Nilotes, and the Kushites here in Kenya. We have a big representation and a lot of work that we've done among the Bantus. We have reached the Nilotes to a certain extent, and mainly the Maasai. But when it comes to the Kushites, who almost 90% are in Marsabit County, our reach as the Presbyterian Church is very minimal. So there is an entire group, the Cushitic group is not yet reached. To an extent, they view themselves as more Ethiopian than Kenyan. And I know that. Even Mary here I think is closer to the Ethiopians than the Kenyans. They identify them as such, themselves as such. So I would like to share more of the practical experiences that I have had during my time in those 5 years and how we've been able to do mission. And probably out of that, we may be able to learn a thing or two. First of all, I went there with no idea where the place is. Also, I had never gone there. And I didn't even know the road that I'm going to take. When I saw the posting to Marsabit, I was starting to think whether I'm going to take the Nyahururu route or whichever route. Then I called somebody and told me it's the Nanyuki route. That's the direction towards Marsabit. So it was completely new to me. And therefore, the first thing that I went there was to encounter what I would call a culture shock in many aspects. And this is in different ways in matters food, dressing, language, and of course other cultural beliefs that are there. And this culture shock required a lot of adjustments to me, and I can tell you it was not easy. But in order to minister to these people, I realized that I have to become a student within that community. I'm not going there with the experiences that I've had back here as I was growing up, but I had to become a student in that community to be able to learn where to start and what I need to do. And therefore I had to live local. I had to eat local. I had to eat that food. I had to know what injera is. I had to know what kita is. I had to know how camel milk tastes and camel meat. I know Koan probably has eaten camel meat, but I had to get those experiences because you have to know exactly the kind of people that you are ministering to. And through that, I was able to get to know some of the things that the people in Marsabit believe in, interact with some of the communities. I've not been able to interact with all of these 14 communities up to now, because as I've told you, the area is quite vast. It's very big. It will not be possible even for me to be able to do that. But I was able to get into the communities, learn a few words, so that as I speak that one word goes a long way in making people
that's what Zacchaeus was. He seemed not to care about anybody until Jesus came that way. And then his true desires showed up, and he sought to see who Jesus was. Everything we say is wrong. Lord, life is so hard. Things are so difficult. I don't think I can make it. I don't think there's hope for me. I don't think there's any way out. I don't think this thing will solve. There are people who can seem very rough on the outside, but deep inside them, they have a deep hunger for God. There is nothing above him. There is no other recourse. And because there is nothing about him, nobody can counter-command his command. So this unseen God, you can have all kinds of imagination of him. But this unseen God decided, I want to show myself, so that when you say he's good, you would know what it means. You say he's kind, he's loving, he's merciful. You can have a real human picture of him.
That belt that has bullets that you load. So his work was to load the bullets. There's somebody to shoot. So the gun ikakwama. So he rose to ensure that it is working. And I think the people they were fighting with saw him and shot him. So me, I'm being told the chairman has been killed. Only to realize, I thought those conflicts were by people who are far away, whom I don't know. Then I realized this thing is right inside even where I am. Probably I'm even be talking with somebody who is part of the jeshi that goes to fight. So, and those are some of the challenges. And when I talked here about the closed communities, there are some things that you may not know until you come into contact with them and you know exactly how they operate and how things work. So I came into contact with those deadly ethnic communities, and I can tell you they are very difficult to understand. As an outsider, you may not be able to fully understand what it's all about, because only the locals may seem to know how and when they are going to occur. So you only hear of the attacks, but you may not know before that. And these conflicts have created a lot of mistrust amongst the people who are living there, because it's between communities. And actually, the main conflict is between the Borana and the Gabra. Borana is the largest community within Marsabit, but a lot of tension between the Borana and the Gabra. Most of those conflicts actually are between those two communities. So when you are preaching, then you have to be very careful, even what you're talking about, because you might talk about something that is offensive to either of the communities. And Mary may know actually more than that, about it more than myself. But since I got involved in some peace initiatives in the area during that time, I could tell you that it was not easy. We meet with other ministers who are locals from different churches, and you're engaging in discussions to have peace in the area. And all of a sudden, the Borana minister stops being a Christian and becomes a Borana. The Gabra minister stops being a Christian and becomes a Gabra. So you are discussing peace, yet people are taking their ethnic positions. And as an outsider, you are left in the middle and you don't know what to say. You cannot talk anything because you become an enemy of either if you talk. And that is a big challenge. And somehow you have to look for a way of making sure that these people get to know about the need for peace as Christians, and also believe that their mandate as Christians is to promote peace and not to promote their ethnic communities. So that was another challenge that I got there. And it's not just with the ministers. Even when you go to the church, people will align themselves with the communities that they come from. At some point I was told by one of the ministers, when you are when you go to church, don't talk about Shetani. Shetani is Satan. Because you may be saying Shetani Yashidwe, and one community may be thinking you are saying they call the other community Shetani. So hii community ifanya nini? Ishindwe. So you might be, you are saying, let me interpret it. Sorry, that don't tell people that you need to defeat Satan, because they view the other community as Satan. So if you talk about defeating Satan, you're talking about defeating the other community. So even the words that you use, you have to be very careful. And some of these things are underlying. You may not know them at a glance. Sometimes if somebody does not tell you, you may continue using them. And you may continue bringing unnecessary tension between the people that you're supposed to minister to. So that was the second thing that I encountered. Another thing that I came into contact with for the first time was the direct confrontation from Islam. A big percentage of the population in Marsabit are Muslim, and it's very widespread across the county. And sometimes there's targeted, what I would call targeted Islamization. They are deliberately targeting people to convert to Islam. They go to the church, young men go to church, and they target young Christian girls to marry them. And once the girls are married, initially they are told, there's no problem, you can continue with your Christianity, we'll continue with my Islam. But once the girl gets married, slowly they are converted. Actually, they are forced to become Muslims. And I have two cases from the church, two churches that I minister to, of girls who have been married into Islam. Actually, one of them came to church a few Sundays after that, just to be shown that we have no problem with you continuing to going to church. But as days went on, she was told not to go to church. Sometimes she would hide herself and come to church, but the husband would come looking for her up to church. And eventually she had to give up, because it was always bringing tension. And I told her, probably what we can do is, because he knows that you come here on Sundays, we can do for a day within the week. Then you can come, we share the word, we pray together, and sort of operate an underground church for such kind of people, because of that tension. So that targeted Islamization, it also includes economic incentives. People are offered money to convert to Islam, and that is happening. Including the chairman of one of my congregations who was being offered money to convert to Islam, though he refused. He was actually not a local, he was from Nyeri. And he was being offered money to convert to Islam. And I know many other people who've been offered. Some have succumbed to it, and they are taken to the mosque for conversion. Not my congregants, but I've seen other people going through that. So that targeted Islamization is very rampant. As we speak now, there's I think a deliberate effort by the Muslims to build mosques all over Marsabit, and they've built, including in the interior areas. They are building a lot of mosques, and they held a big fundraising to be able to do that. And I think once they did the fundraising, I think they had targeted to do like 30 mosques at Ago. They did very big mosques. Their agenda is to ensure that they convert as many people as possible. And probably at that point I would like to mention something about Marsabit. in Kenya, the government has this plan to start the LabSet project. And the LabSet project that connects Lamu, the Lamu port to Moyale, Ethiopia, is passing through Isiolo, Marsabit, all the way to Moyale. And the project is ongoing. I think the port is complete. They are doing the roads. So the work is moving on slowly, but eventually, I know it will be completed. And that corridor might become, the towns along that corridor might become very, very big towns in future. And even the economic prospects may be very high. Because I was being told that getting goods from the Moyale border to West Africa takes about 2 weeks. From Lamu to port to West Africa takes about 2 weeks. But if they use the ship going round South Africa all the way to West Africa, it takes 3 months. So these are shorter routes, more efficient, and the West African countries might choose to use that border. And Moyale might become sort of a dry port. And I remember the former president with the Prime Minister of Ethiopia opening something in preparation to that. And there are so many other things that the government is doing, I think, in preparation of that. So whatever time it takes, Isiolo, Marsabit, Moyale might be very big towns in future. And I think the Muslims are looking ahead. They are positioning themselves so that they'll be able to capture that area, not only in terms of Islam, but also in terms of the economic opportunities that might arise. Yet the church has not been able to look at it and preach to people before they are converted, because so many are still traditionalists. They've not been evangelized to by Christians, they've not been evangelized to by Muslims, and they are the majority. So it's good to look at it from that perspective. So there's a lot of targeted Islamization that is going on. During elections, that's where I've seen Muslims declaring that they want to get all the seats. And unfortunately, they did not manage to do it this time round. But of course, the governor is Muslim. When you go to the CSAs, 90% or 95% are Muslim, and most of the jobs are given to Muslim, the contracts. So you find all that is really, really suppressing Christianity. And as the SG has said here, that Christianity is declining very fast, but you also need to say that Islam is growing very fast. So we need to really look at mission in a way that we are taught about redeeming time. It's sort of we are redeeming time before people get indoctrinated with other things, and it will be very, very hard to get them out of that. And another thing I encountered was the deep cultural beliefs and practices that are there, which also hinder full commitment, because to the people there, they supersede the Christian faith. And majority view the Christian faith as secondary to their traditions. And as a result, there is great need for intensive evangelization in this area. Some of the things that are quite a challenge when it comes to culture, the role of women in leadership, the issue of FGM. This is something that is very difficult to eliminate. It's very widespread in that area. It's done very secretly. We have programs in our church where we teach people about the dangers of FGM, but they will lie to you that the girl is going to visit the grandmother or the auntie somewhere, and that girl is undergoes that right there, and they come back when they are healed. So you may never even know. So they come back to church. The parents would say they've really heard. In fact, they'd say, hey, hiyo kitu ni mbaya sana. They'll show like they're on your side, but it still happens. When you try to follow up things, you realize that it still happens. It's still widespread. I saw recently there's a clip in social media that has really caused a lot of uproar about a girl who was being beaten by grown-up men because of refusing to undergo FGM. Wherever that is from may not be Kenya, but when I see such kind of a clip, for me, I see reality. I don't see a story from somewhere. There are things that are practical. Another time, I was traveling from Isiolo to Marsabit in a Nissan Matatu, and I sat next to a young girl, and was seated in the front seat. So I engaged. I started talking to her. I wanted to know whether she's a Christian, where she was coming from. She's in her teenage. So she told me she was coming from Nairobi. She had been employed somewhere as a house help, but now she's going home. She's Samburu, so she was going towards Samburu. Then I asked her, and where are you going? Have you stopped working, or where are you going home? And she told me, no, I'm going home because I had not. Actually, I'll explain. Let me put it in Kiswahili the way she told me. Nataka kurudi nyumbani kwa sababu nilitoka kama sijakeketwa. So why are you going back? Lazima nikeketwe ama wazee watanipatia laana. So what she was telling me, for those who do not understand Kiswahili, that I'm going back to Samburu because I left there before I underwent FGM. And I asked her, then why are you going back? You had, I believe in Nairobi it was a safe space. You could have remained there and not even go back. They said, no, I cannot do that. Because if I don't go back and undergo that right, the elders are going to curse me. In fact, she said, and I might even be hit by a car while I'm crossing the road. And I want you to see the deep cultural beliefs that are there. And eliminating it is not that easy. And that is why it's good to really get to understand how these things operate and how deep they are. I felt bad for the girl, but unfortunately there is nothing I could do. I was on my way back. She was alighting even before, and she was convinced that is what needs to be done. So when you see some of those clips, it is not an isolated case. It is something that is rampant, that is happening, and something that really denigrates women, and something that it needs to be dealt with. But I want to tell you that it is not easy. In some of those parts, probably Cohen may know about this. If you intervene as their minister, and they know, you can even be threatened with death. Wachana na mila yetu. Don't interfere with our culture, or we are going to kill you. They will tell you outrightly. So it requires a well-coordinated effort and government intervention in most cases, without you being even in the forefront for some of these vices to be fought. So those are some, and also early marriages. I've lost young girls to marriage, early marriages. Who were in primary school, married off by old men who are older than me, as not even as the first wives, second, third, fourth wives. So that is still happening in a very large scale, especially among the Rendile. I think also the Samburu also are doing it a lot. Borana not so much, but there is a lot of divorce rates among the Borana. That's what I see. And among the Muslims. By the way, among the Muslims, it's very, very high. I was talking to another lawyer, and he was telling me in a year he handles about 300 cases of divorce, Muslims, 300 cases, and only about 2 for Christians. So sometimes it's not all gloom. I think the Christian marriages survive more than the Muslims. He was telling me 300 cases. I mean, there are many, but I'm happy because they are paying me when they come to me. But that's almost a divorce case every day. 1 divorce every day. And that's only in Marsabit. So, in order now to minister, it was important for me to understand these dynamics and take an integrated approach, engage in integral mission, so that I'm able to do evangelization and also take some social responsibility initiatives, have some social responsibility initiatives in order to be able to work together with the community and integrate with them. And we looked at the most pressing issues, one of them being water, as I had mentioned, that the area is very dry. And we decided to do 3 boreholes in different places. So we decided to do some geological surveys. One area, there was a survey that had been done earlier, and they had identified that there is water. But since there were many years back, we had to do another survey, and we realized we still have water 300 meters below. And we looked for money, we did the geological survey, and after that, I approached Compassion Kenya, and they agreed to drill a borehole for us. And we were able to get water in that place called Boruharu. We were able to get a borehole. Unfortunately, we didn't get the volume of water that we would have expected. The yield was not big because those who are drilling did not actually go to 300 meters. They stopped at 115 and said, we are looking for water and we've gotten water. And since they were afraid that the borehole may collapse below and they might go at a loss because it's a company that had been hired to do that, they were not able to go all the way to 300 meters. But we got water. It's not much, but that water has really been helpful to that community. They were traveling about, the closest place where they could buy water was about 6-7 kilometers away. The closest place they could get free water was about 11-12 kilometers away. So, and this is a place where you get water, your water. It's also where the animals, the watering point for the animals is. So it's a whole day activity. When you go there in the morning, the woman is coming back at 4 in the evening. It's a whole day engagement. So we were able to do that and have the borehole up and running. That was in 2021. I think 2021 March. I think that's when the borehole was started running. And since that time, the community has been able to get water at the church compound. We sell to them at 10 shillings per jerrycan. That's very cheap because normally they buy at 40 shillings, but we sell to them at 10 shillings for purposes of maintaining the borehole, because we use electricity. The solar panel that was put does not work. We've not been able to have money to increase the number of panels, so we are still doing electricity. But we want to believe at some point we'll be able to have enough solar panels to use solar, because it's very expensive to run it on electricity, and especially when it's actually a CSR project. You're actually not selling that water to the community. It's like giving them that water freely. So that has been able to be done. We did the second survey at another point. We have the hydrogeological survey report, but unfortunately we've not gotten the funds to drill, or we've not gotten somebody to drill it, but you're still believing God that you'll get, but you've already conducted that survey. And the money to do the drilling is actually local initiatives. We don't go asking for money to do the survey. We try to raise money little by little until you get the amount that is required. Actually, in this second survey, the person who did the first survey did it when he had only paid like 50% of the cost. So he told us, I'll do it because I've worked with you, then you can be paying me until you pay the full cost. So we are believing God that you'll be able to have that going, and we can be able now to help that other community access water, safe water, where they are. And then from there, probably we will do the survey in the third point that we had identified. The other thing approach that we took is on education. There are a lot of school dropouts, especially at the primary school level. Majority of people are not transiting to secondary school. The narrative that is in the media is that there is free education, but I can tell you that is not the case. And I've learned about it when I am there, that it's not free, because if there is any place that it should have been free, then it should be in Marsabit and those northern counties. But even those day secondary schools, I see the secondary schools, they pay up to 17,000 per year. I see them paying money, and yet you are told of free education. So we saw the challenge that we were having when people are dropping out of school. And for these people and these communities to be empowered, I think education is a key factor, so that they are able to transit and grow into different areas and come back and help their communities. You started an initiative to support secondary school children with education. I talked to East African Partnership. That was last year, beginning of last year. I talked to East African Partnership. They agreed to sponsor 6 children, 2 of whom actually completed Form 4 this year. One got a C+, the other one got a C stand. That was quite an achievement, considering where they were learning in. So those 2 have completed. So those 6 from East African Partnership. The Presbytery, Tomoto Presbytery, supported 2. 1 cleared, got a C stand. The other one is in Form 4 currently. Then I talked to 2 friends of mine, and together we support 2 who are now one is in Form 3, the other one is in Form 2. So that's a row of 10 students whom we've been able to offer secondary school sponsorship, so that they are able now to transit and move to something else and develop themselves. It is very difficult, and that's why earlier I had said that partnerships are really needed in Marsabit. Yesterday I got a letter of list of students who are writing to me asking for assistance. They cannot be able to go to secondary school. I still have others. I've not even responded because I know I don't have any way to support them. But it's a big challenge. And during the campaigns, people are saying that those counties are getting a lot of money. They are sponsoring people even to go for studies abroad. I have not seen that in Marsabit. I think some of these are political stories, because I'm there on the ground and I'm seeing the suffering that these people are going through. So we need to look at it from that perspective. And if we have to reach these communities, then we have to empower these young people. Those are the ones who are going to take the gospel further. Actually, one of the young men who completed, the one who got a C+, was initially a Muslim when he was a child. But he started going to church and accepted Christianity, and he's refused to go back to Islam. So you see the impact that supporting such children can have. These people will come back. They're the ones who are going even to reach the others. They are very passionate. When they talk to you about the gospel, they show that passion because their lives have been impacted one way or another. And they even tell you, hey, Wakristo ni wazuri. They even tell you because they know and they have felt the impact that has been there. And the other thing, there is also one girl who was neglected by her family to a point of almost becoming depressed. One day she was seen walking on the highway, headed to Meru, a 9-year-old girl. She thinks she's going to look for a school in Meru. She was neglected. And I talked to Reverend Laureen. She's now at Mother Esther. That's where she was given a home. And she has really settled. And that problem was addressed. So those are some of the interventions in matters education that we have undertaken. Then we also saw, because of the high poverty levels, the aspect of humanitarian assistance cannot be ignored. So because of this area being perennially dry, people sometimes really suffer because they don't have any food to eat. And we've tried on our part whatever we can do to be able to provide food assistance to these people from the mission board, from the presbytery, and from well-wishers. And we've been doing that every now and then. And we thank God even for that. And I think somebody talked about transparency. I don't remember who mentioned about that. And that is one thing that we've really been emphasizing. And I remember even Reverend Doreen can attest to it. When we got assistance from them, we had to give back a report of every item that was bought, the number of families that were reached with that food assistance, photos of the people who got the assistance, and fiscalized receipts of the purchases that were made, and did the report back. Because at the end of the day, this assistance is for those people, and it has to reach the intended beneficiaries, and we have to remain accountable to it. And that has been our way of operation for all the relief assistance that has come to us. The other thing is, as we do mission, the need for opening new churches have been there. We currently have 5 congregations. One congregation, we don't even have a church. We are putting up in a classroom that is next to some land that we acquired. We've not been able to put up a church, but we're believing that somewhere along the way God is going to make a way for us to have a church there. There is no church in that area. Most of the people are Muslims, or they claim to be Muslims, because I have not seen them practicing, but when you approach them, they tell you they are Muslims. But within a short time, we had managed to have about 30 people coming and converting to Christianity. Yet we do not have a church at all. And unfortunately, like at the moment, the school headmaster is a Muslim, and he really frustrates them, sometimes even closing the gate so that they don't access the classroom. So these are some of the areas of mission that you should be looking at. Because I come from this side, so I know how comfortable we are when we are looking at things. And we need to be challenged, because we prioritize and we major on minors and minor on majors. So we need to understand that there are areas that really need this gospel, and it's not much. just putting up a Mabati church may be enough to have 100 people coming to Christ. So these are some of the things that are there. We also have the other 3 churches are Mabati churches that we have put up. Then we have one church, the first permanent church that we are putting up in Marsabit town. I also found a small Mabati church there. But we've been able to do a permanent church, and it was for a reason. It was not to be like PCA, as the other PCAs are. The main reason why I did that is because the Mabati church that was there, sometimes people, because it was not even fenced, people who are against the church and were pushing the church to sell that land to them would come when you're having a service with a stick, kwa mabati, see that from end to end, and you are in charge, so you cannot even concentrate. And I'm told one day, in this place where they were using it as a vestry, they found a grenade in the morning, on Sunday morning. So the police were called and removed it. And when all those stories came up, I said, no, we have to show these people we are not pastoralists in Marsabit. We've come here to preach the gospel, and we'll be here for the long haul. So by faith, we are going to put up a permanent church where nobody would come and misbehave that way. And by the grace of God, through friends, we've been able to put up the church. We are not yet through. I've gotten a lot of support from the outreach, the Nadeni Outreach Foundation, because they've roofed the church, they've given me the windows. Now we are believing God for the floor, because that is what is remaining, so that they now take, and from there they stopped harassing us, and they stopped telling us to sell the land to them. So those are some of the challenges. So the church has to be seen to be moving, even for those people who are against the church, to believe that the church is moving. They have to see. When they saw that we are serious with building, they would even come to check. And many they would ask, "Hiyo watu wa church ndio wanajenga kanisa?" Ambia hapana, ni Mungu anajenga. It's not these few people that you see, it's God who is doing it. So and on this point, there is opportunity for mission in Marsabit. A huge, huge, huge opportunity. In fact, PCA can have over 20 churches in Marsabit if you are focused on mission and evangelization in Marsabit. I've been orphaned land, which I've refused to take, and I've refused with a reason, because I have nothing to do with that land. I'm unable to put up a small Mabati church. Then I'm told we are going to give, I hear PCA, you can even do hospitals, we'll give you 20 acres of land. We were given 6 acres some time back and we took it. But the other land has been repossessed because over the years, we have not been able to do anything, to put up anything, and they were really expectant of us getting into that community. Land is not an issue, but we can be able to penetrate that, and we can actually have churches in every corner of Marsabit and infiltrate those communities with the gospel. So the area is very fertile for mission, and may God help us in the short time that God has given us to be able to be faithful in carrying out mission to the Cushites. And as I conclude, because I don't want to take a long time, the area is prime for harvest. However, sufficient economic resources have to be put on the missionary offensive. I don't know whether it requires, from our local point of view, relooking at our budgets and see how much we can allocate towards that. But we need sufficient economic resources to be put on the missionary offensive. That's the only way the mission and BSL can be able to reach those areas. It can also be from partnerships, from outside and from within. Even from Thika, I heard Sukari talking about Sukari Deliverance Church are partnering with Deliverance Marsabit. So can also partner. PCA Sukari can also partner with PCA Marsabit. And for us to succeed, we need to localize mission more. And in those 5 years that I've been there, I've realized that actually what we need in those areas are missionaries and not ministers. And that might sound controversial, but that is what I've seen out of experience. We need missionaries, not ministers. People who can be placed in those different locations, and I've seen that happening with the CITAM Church. I've seen Deliverance Church also coming up with that strategy. We need to start thinking about missionaries whom even the mission department can be able to know how they are working, not ministers. And locals who can be able to penetrate into those communities and take the gospel to them. Then the other thing is we need to translate our literature into the local languages, and especially the Boran language. I went there full of fire for the gospel, preaching, getting people baptized, confirming them. Then one day, after you've confirmed some people, they've gone through the catechism classes. The first day I went, I gave them Holy Communion. The second time I went to give them Holy Communion, you've gone through the liturgy, now it's time for them to receive the Holy Communion. Nobody is coming up. And I wondered, what is this? And I tried calling, and you cannot force somebody to take Holy Communion. So I had to accept to give the few who could not even add up to 10. I think there were about 5 who accepted, and some of them were the elders who were. So then after that I tried to ask around. And the issue of close communities, very critical. Nobody would tell you why they were not taking Holy Communion. Including Mary did not tell me. I was asking her later. Then later, one person told me, when they tasted the first time, they realized it is wine. Wakasema hiyo ni pombe. I didn't, it's something, for me that's the way. So the next time I went with Ribena, I made sure the packet is visible. And people came out to take Holy Communion. Simple things that you might not even think about. Because for them, and their Christianity has a lot of Ethiopian influence because of the Coptic Church. So then I realized it's not even just about the one. I asked myself, when I was going through all this literature, were they even understanding what I'm saying in Kiswahili? Probably not. Probably up to date. They don't understand why I stand in front of them and recite these words. They may not even understand. It's not contextual to them. And one of the reasons why I've come to that conclusion is because when you tell them to sing Tenzi za Rohoni, I think the only song for those 5 years they can confidently sing is Chakutumaini Sina. All these other songs, when you tell them to sing, they just look at you. how can we reach these people? And let me tell you, those people can sing. So it's not their culture not to sing. When you start a Borana song, the Holy Spirit will come down and they will jump and dance and all that. But when it comes to Tenzi, it's quiet. We need to localize this gospel and this mission. When I stand in front of them as an outsider, they view that church as the church of the outsiders. But if I was speaking to them about what Paul said about the Holy Communion in Borana, it will sink, it will be very, very effective in evangelizing to them. So we need to look at translation. And I thank God, yesterday we were talking with the director of missions, and he assured me he's going to link up with BTL to see what we can do. Because that is an area that can make us evangelize easily to that community. So we need to look at all the literature that needs to be translated. We translate them. I know even, was it Nelson Mandela who said, when you speak to somebody in English, you speak to their mind. When you speak to them in their mother tongue, you are speaking to their. So I might have been there for 5 years, speaking to the mind of people, but not reaching their heart. And that's the reality. So, therefore, language as a cultural component is quite a big challenge. And even when you're doing evangelizations, you speak in Swahili, somebody interprets, sometimes you're not even sure whether the interpretation is correct. You are not sure where the message has reached. Mary has been very helpful in evangelism, especially within her community, because she's able to reach the people in their language. And through her, a number of people have come to accept Christ. Even some who are Muslims, they're members of the congregation. She's able to reach them through door-to-door fellowship, through those open-air meetings within, we call them the Manyata, within the villages. So, but doing it in Kiswahili does not yield fruit. And these are some of the realities as a church that we need to look at when we are doing a mission. There's a time a previous moderator of the presbytery came to Marsabit and he was preaching. And then I told him, now here we have Boranas, we have Rendiles, we have Trukanas. And of course, the literacy levels are not that high, so there are some who do not fully understand Kiswahili, especially the old ones. So what he had to do was to get a Redire, to get a Borana, and to get a Turkana. So he's preaching, then wait for the Borana to interpret. From there, the Redire to interpret. Then the Turkana to interpret. Then he moves to the next sentence. And you can imagine how long that sermon took. When you have four people speaking. So these are some of the realities, because they affect to a certain degree the effectiveness of mission in certain areas. And also I've witnessed there are conferences that we hold, and I've witnessed it a number of times. When you plan for a conference and you invite preachers from here, and I'm very reluctant to do that actually. People, turn up. But arrange for a conference and invite a Borana speaker. That conference would fill. People would come from very far places for those conferences. And that is something that I realized, and I said, no, let it continue this way, because they are able now to get the gospel from from those people. Effective mission, therefore, would require us to put on the right lenses and embrace the worldview of the local communities, even as they wear the right lenses to see those who come into their communities. Therefore, empowering them to look and think from within will eliminate the dependency syndrome in the long run. And something I also learned is, when I went there, is sometimes we always talk about thinking outside the box. But when I went there, I realized it's good to think within the box. You have to enter into that box of that community. Think as they think. Think while you're inside that box for you to be able to think outside the box. So that's what I'm saying. Sometimes we need to think within that box. Let us not think outside the box or think without the box, because the box has to be there. We cannot eliminate that box. That community is there. We think from within, and that will help us to eliminate the dependency syndrome as we engage with them. Therefore, the local people must be involved in designing programs, determining their priorities, and initiating mission in their localities. And that is important. We need to reach and establish mission within the communities spearheaded by the locals. And it is possible, because I've seen it with other mainline churches. It can happen. And as I conclude, I want to say that mission is a sacred duty. Every unreached area bears a responsibility for the church and for us. And it's like being given a piece of land to cultivate, and every time the owner comes, he finds it half done. And when I look at Marsabit, that's what I see. That God has given us East Africa, and we are talking of the Presbyterian Church of East Africa. But every time God comes to look at the work that is entrusted to us, he finds work that is half done. We need to challenge ourselves and reach every corner of this country, including that part, and spread the good news and the gospel within that community. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Jihia. Thank you so much for sharing and for the work and the ministry that you're doing. I think if there are any questions or comments that you have, maybe we can all stand up first, because I think we're tired and a little bit hot. It's warm in here. Maybe we can all stand up for a minute. And you can stretch your own way. I'm not going to lead you in stretches like Reverend Murata. Okay, now we can sit back down. So we've heard about the context and the ministry that's happening in Marsabit, and about the importance of engaging local communities, of meeting them where they are, of understanding a culture and a group before we think that we can preach to them, of walking with people in the journey that they're on. So are there any questions or comments? I think also the importance of raising up local leaders. Any comments or questions before we close for this afternoon? Yes, Kezia. Yes, that's what he does. Her question was whether the 500 kilometers that Marsabit covers if Reverend Jihia covers by himself. I should say he's the only ordained minister in that county, but he has about 5 evangelists who work with him. So there's 6. Yes, Stephen.
It's very good that he's been left there for 5 years. That is not normal. And he already been gone. In order to be safe, but he already gone.
Yes.
He would not have brought you this story.
Yes.
So we're going to send people to these areas. You must leave them there. Not alone, but supported. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. And thank you for Debbie for telling people what I've been trying to tell you for years. Hope as a Kenyan is heard better, and the world is a nation out here. And people send up food. I met a lady who sells honey for us here in Riverside in Nairobi. She comes from Eastleigh Parish, and she's the head of the Women's Guild. She said, we took food to Samburu, and here the people are hungry. She took it to a place where people should not be hungry.
Yeah.
There's markets, there's places they can sell goods. So if we bring the food without talking to the people on the ground, we actually make the problem worse. And I think we need to learn to, as presbytery and people need to come and listen to what is in the box, because outside we have no idea what Samburu or Borana is thinking. Even a little example of communion is just spot on. We don't think. We should be thinking that we have a high level of alcoholism, a serious level of alcohol dependency in the whole northern Kenya. It is shocking. And people come off alcohol, then you offer them communion. Yeah. So let us think, let us learn, and we don't need to be going to Rwanda or Uganda, really. We should be looking at northern Kenya, where we have serious needs. And many churches cannot afford to be there. That is why in the villages where we work, there are no other denominations at work, because it costs money. The church will not make you money in the Sadaki and Kidogo, anything. And it's going to be a long-term investment if we're going to work against the rise of Islam in northern Kenya.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought the what you said at the beginning, in order to minister to people in the area around Marsabit, I had to become a student of the community, was a very good point, that we need to become students of the places where we minister before we think we have something to teach. Yes?
We congratulate Lydia for the good job in Marsabit. I think next time we should hold such a conference in Marsabit. Number 2, I think this year the church should strategize more.
Yes, Reverend.
This weekend I was in Garissa for a short mission, and I was in a community that is Muslim. And I realized how difficult it is to witness in a Muslim area, because you can't do a crusade. You only can minister through rap, showing rap to the people.
Yes.
Now that in Marsabit, we have a great opportunity hearing from what Reverend Jehe is saying, because we have traditionalists. They do not have anything that has taken advantage in reaching them out. I think there is a dialect of investing as a church in reaching out to those communities, because if we let our brothers go before us, it will become very hard to penetrate the message of Jesus in the days to come.
Thank you. Yes, Elder Gashagwa.
I have also visited Marsabit, and the amount that is mentioned in water, sometimes Marsabit, especially the town area, where the town is very high, and then there is the lowlands. And especially when I work for government, and when I was there, I was interacting with the county government. And the challenge that was there, as far as water provision in Marsabit was concerned, is that if you drill boreholes downstream, there is a lake up there, which is an ecosystem, which may be affected by draining water down there. So even as we think about some of the activities that we have, it is important to also know what government institutions are thinking, so that we are not at cross purpose. The other thing that I would want to note, especially about evangelism in northern Kenya and other challenging areas, is that for us who are in Kenya, the government system has changed. We have a devolved system. I think in the US it's more or less like the federal government. And that is likely to affect, in my own view, the church that is likely to be affected most by the pollution is the Presbyterian Church. And it is because of its expansion strategy. Our expansion strategy, you find that for us, for us to, for example, plant a church somewhere. For example, for us, we went there, perhaps Marsabit, when the church had already started. So if you try to put the history of how the church started there must have been Presbyterians who settled there, and then they became a number. They realized that now they can establish a church. And then the church was, requested for a minister, and the minister perhaps was posted. It became an outreach or something like that. Yeah. And then they became a parish, and a minister was posted. Now, the challenge I would want to pose to us as Presbyterians is this devolved system of government. Most of the times, the people who will be employed by, government would said, government was a major employer in those areas, and sometimes they could send people from areas, like me, perhaps I could be transferred to go to Marsabit, and as I am there, I say I'm Presbyterian, I look for few Presbyterians, and then we start the church. Now, the devolved system of government is now limiting people from other areas, especially from an area which are traditionally Presbyterian, perhaps to go to those areas. So in the process, where we have not gone, we may never have somebody to say here it's a place where we can go. And my appeal and my thinking in this regard would be, as part of our mission, in an area like Marsabit town, let the Presbyterian Church build a church. How that church will be filled is us to work. We work backwards. So that we don't give a very few people who are struggling with the resources, to start a church. What perhaps the deliverance or Sitam would do, they would put up something there. And then their mission work starts. But sometimes we start a mission, with no structure. So I would really appeal to the Presbyterian Church, as somebody has indicated, as he has indicated rather, we are not visible in many areas. Those areas. If you go there, you find the Catholic Church. I've been to Wajir. The Catholic Church is strong there. If we say that our presence will be felt in every county headquarters, a county headquarters must have a PCA church. I think it will be a very good beginning. But when we say that burden will be those people who are there, let them start at a structure, let them start on their own, and then we start supporting them. Sometimes it is very heavy on them. So that is what I will suggest. So that even when we are thinking about the mission, we think about planting churches where there are no churches.
Thank you. Yes, Doctor, we'll go this way. Dr. Shiriaku. Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Thank you so much, Dr. Shiriaku, for such an insightful presentation from a place of experience, that you have lived that experience. And right now, for me, I'm just overwhelmed by the information that we got from him. And but even as I'm thinking and as everybody else is thinking, I'm wondering, for a church that is so overwhelmed, right now even the SG told us that he cannot even stay here because he had to fly out to go to another space because of all things. Whether we even have the bandwidth to engage what he's saying, what the community is saying. So strategically, I'm just wondering how this can be done, because I'm sure all of us have heard here. In fact, I heard you the first time you presented, together with the girl from TUM. I think that we presented at the same time. And even I'm wondering about strategy. I'm also concerned that the wealth of experience that Virginia has, and that you've been there, you've given yourself to ministry, and you've stayed there for 5 years. And as you are suggesting, that soon it might be uprooted from there and be taken to another parish, and then it is it's a new thing all over again. And possibly 10 years to come, we will now hear, maybe another day will come, and we'll hear the same. So I'm wrestling with that and wondering how can it be done strategically, and with the wealth that he has, and working with a person like him or him over a number of years until something is accomplished and something is done. I don't have answers to it. As I said, myself is really overwhelmed by the information, and I'm going to reach out to him, on the side. We have talked a couple of times, but we're just wondering, how can it be done? I hear what my brother is saying, Sharima, but I think the church, as a denomination, is just overwhelmed. And even beginning to bring these subjects to the church, unless it is to an individual congregation that might be willing to take up that, that challenge. As a denomination, it might be hard, it might be, the same old story over and over again. Whereas, already we have somebody on the ground, somebody who's doing something, that knowledge, he has tapped in. I didn't want to talk a lot, but there's somebody who just told us the other day that most of us Africans die with a lot of wealth, and we take it to the grave because it is only us who had that wealth and nobody else tapped into it, or we never prepared others to tap into that wealth. So uprooting Reverend Jacob from that space, which is going to happen definitely, knowing what is going to happen,
then we have yet the cry is so real. You know, the cry for mission is so real.
Thank you. Yes, Daniel, and then Reverend Karim, Dr. Karim.
I attest to that because I've been to Mozambique more than twice. We have built the three churches in Saint, and also helping everyone in the center of Mozambique. Actually, what happens as he says about the water, I was there 2012, and we did the first joyful service. That is 2012.
Yes.
And this water was done now
2021.
How many years?
That's
You can see what happens with the church. 10 years, packed, wait until another 10 years. So we have seen that he wants to be helped with a church where they have got 30 people under the tree and they are chased. And it's all Muslim around there.
Yeah.
And the Presbyterians here will be able to help them there. So my request here is, because it's a hard age, before he leaves to Marzabet, it would be fair for even this conference to think of how they can support these brothers to put up that one church, which is about 1.5 million, 1.6, because as we are talking with him, those people are not even able to buy stones, even one rolling of sand. So I would request, if it is possible, because we have had it, and we are also pathetic about it, is it? And we are sorry about it, is it? Because it's the whole church. Why can't we, in this conference, come out and say, we can forfeit 5 dinners, and then we are able to give one church to Marzabet, and it will be remembered that the conference that was held 2023 gave that to Marzabet before Jehia lived there. So it is going to be done before he lives there, and it is through the effort of this conference of 2023. Because we have had it, then we go. Then we come next year, after 3 years, we add it. Then we go. So why not act now? Because I know it is hard for the Presbyterian Church headquarters here to get money to well built. We have the experience because the Presbyterians sometimes do not give money out to go to the building. You leave it to the congregations, they page them with their problems until they get the door. So I urge brothers and sisters here, we help Brother Jehia if we have felt it, because I see everybody is noting that we have had the problems and what a job. It is not easy going there. It is not easy living there. We are almost dying that day, 2012, in the midst of Orogo. There is a place called Orogo, because we got stuck, tax came, and then we are not able to. The very bomb can attest to that. We have him when he was a student in our place. So it is not easy and it is hard to see. So please let's think about it.
Thank you, Elton. Yes, Dr. Karim.
I hear the cry of Dr. Kriyo and others, but I tend to think there are some critical solutions to some of these issues, but there are also some that would be considered common sense, because we cannot confine Reverend Jehia to Marsabit for more than 5 years, much as we love the work that he's doing there. The reason why I'm saying there's some common sense approaches to some of these issues is that the church has recruited some students for theological training from those areas, yet they are serving not in Marsabit, but in areas that they have to preach in Swahili.
Yes, Malindi and
yes,
Yaka.
Reverend Richard in Mari, he has to preach in Swahili, yet he's from that area, and he was recruited for that particular purpose. So we should try to bring back people and the ministers who can speak a language. If the language is speaking and is becoming a very good conduit of mission work, then that minister should be there. Or somewhere in the neighborhood, he understands the culture, he speaks their language, he was recruited for that particular area. It doesn't make sense for him to be posted to areas where he has to use Swahili because he cannot communicate in Kikuyu or any other language. So I think there is a problem with the posting issue.
That one I think you need to take to the appointments committee.
No.
Yes.
I agree with most of what you have
also the culture with Marsabit.
Yeah.
And you could find it very difficult because you have to do a lot of work. You are a social worker, you are a pastor, there is FGM going on somewhere,
Yeah.
men are drinking somewhere, the children are dropping out of school, and you have to do all that. Then you come to the issue of the church. The main church that he says is Catholic Church. So you either get some believers or the people that you have reached out. Where do you send them? You send them to the Catholic Church. The other will tell you, with the father they do not get married. And to the Pokot, you cannot reach them out, or you cannot be their pastor if you don't have a family. You get issues in that. So you are left struggling. Where do they? Where do you take them? You also find that, as you were saying, for sure you need the missionaries out there who can talk their language, they can associate with them so easily.
And that's what Zacchaeus was. He seemed not to care about anybody until Jesus